Alrighty. So first and simply, I think people have a love for God, which is more powerful than fear, but the fear of God is still wonderful and beginning of wisdom. Oftentimes we can just treat God as like, oh, secondary, third, or fifth, or sixth, or even 10th on our priority list, and this will inevitably lead to sorrow, anger, strife, discord, and just overall discontent with life. Let's just say you're sick for some reason and you're coughing. I'm personally under the belief that you aren't really taking God that seriously. This is why you're sick. It's a humbling on your part. In that maybe you can't get out of bed for some reason, or maybe you can't exercise properly, in hopes that that would sort of humble you to life. Paul describes in 1 Corinthians 11 that if we eat of the Eucharist unworthily, that's the reason why you're sick and in some cases die. And so we can just ponder on that for a moment, you know. This is why confession is so good. Not only that, but like, you should be eating healthy. You should be getting the correct amount of sleep in order for you not to be sick and not be coughing, especially coughing during Mass. Like, there's many steps for you to take in order for you not to cough, not be sick. Because it's quite annoying. Now, kind of like a trendy topic is the antichrist and the end times. And I understand why, because we often look at the world and we understand that, yeah, there's a lot of garbage going on. We need to like really understand what it is. And so when we look at the word antichrist, it's anti, which is short for antithesis, which means the opposite. And so the opposite of Christ, if Christ is goodness, love, holiness, the opposite of that is sin and anger and just power and envy and just, that's the opposite. And so Paul describes the Antichrist as the man of lawlessness. And why did he say the woman of lawlessness? It's because it's men who really change things. Like, women, they're a support character. And that's often the critique of religion, particularly among liberals, is that they go, oh, look, religion, it restricts women. And it's like, it also restricts men. Like, there's rules men have to follow and women have to follow. And you'll be far more happier following them than not. And so it's like, oh, we need women in power for some reason. And it's like, do they even want to be? Like, does that even, like, when we look at females in power, it's never been a good idea. Like, we look at Margaret Thatcher, for example. Like, what did she do? What is she known for? I think she's one of the longest serving prime ministers, but like, I can't tell you a single policy she enacted. I'll tell you that she wore a blue suit essentially into Parliament, but I can't tell you one policy that went and helped England. And then you look at, oh, look at Queen Elizabeth. It's like, what did she do? Like, if you look at the state of the UK, I mean, it is like empires fall when women lead. We look at the King dynasty and the Boxer Rebellion, and it was this female emperor. And then all of a sudden, this Boxer Rebellion comes out, and it was the end of the King dynasty, which I think it was like a 500 to 700 year reign. And at the end of it was a female leader. Not saying that female leaders are not good. I just think it's not their role. And I don't really, really, truly believe they don't want to be in a leadership position. Men have the faculty to think, to sit in silence and think. More so in the case of women who just want to be around and talk. And it's different. It's like completely, like men and women are completely different. And that's a good thing. And so Paul describes the Antichrist as the man of lawlessness, and that he's already present among you. Is that, yes, there's the major Antichrist in the book of Revelation, but there's also many Antichrists. And these are people who just want to do away with Christianity, the teachings of Jesus. They want no laws, right? And it's like, oftentimes I have conversations with these atheists, and it's like, if there's no rules, there's no justice. And so if you have a society that has no rules, no moral framework, no rules to live by, that society will fall into chaos, and it will be far, far, far worse than just following what Jesus told you to do. I mean, we think that the rules of Christianity are somehow restricting, but they actually give you freedom. Because if you don't follow them and you go and you sin, you become a slave to sin. You can't break out of it without Jesus. And confession exists for a reason. It's because people are weak. And so, kind of keep that in mind. Because a lot of people want to do away with Christianity. And it's like, you really don't know what you're saying. It's like, you can look at the collapse of the Greeks and the Romans and that. It's like, where did their collapse come from? How do nations fall? It's when nations don't have quality families. They go into debauchery. And the debauchery becomes so much that God just wipes out the nation. Now, he can do this a number of ways. He can have another nation attack that nation. He can have a bunch of natural disasters. There's a bunch of ways to do it. But it's like, if you just, the society and people just keep on sinning and sinning and sinning with no end in sight, like, God will intervene and just wipe out that nation. And so back then, we look at, people would basically take their children and kill them and sacrifice them to demons in order for wealth and prosperity. And that's sort of the same thing that's occurring now with abortion, is that people are killing their children in order for wealth and prosperity. And it's like gravely, 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 gravely sinful. One critique of Christianity is like, oh look, there's slavery in the Bible. And it's like, yes, because slavery existed. If there was no slavery in the Bible, the validity of the Bible would just go out the window. But then you realize, you look through history, oh yeah, slavery did exist, right? And it's like, oftentimes when I encounter these people, I go, why did slavery end? And why was it Christians that ended it? And why did they use Christian arguments to end it? It was no atheist that came and went along and said, you know what, slavery is bad. No. Atheists, they just go with what society tells them to do. And if the society's Christian, then they'll be Christian. At least not in the sense of worshiping God, but at least be, as Richard Dawkins put, the cultural Christian. I always tell these people that Jesus' teachings are perfect, and they know it. Like, deep down within them, they know it. Even Richard Dawkins, who's an atheist, and says the whole God delusion, God is just complete bullshit. He did an interview with Alex Connor, and basically, like, Alex Connor was like, no, it's not like, he was playing like the other side, like, no, like, there's still, like, Christianity specifically, there's still like great moral lessons in there. And Richard Dawkins was like, no, it's complete and utter bullshit. But even Richard Dawkins would say that Jesus' teachings are perfect, are good. Maybe not perfect, but he said that's a good thing. They are a good thing. And that to love your neighbor, to do unto others as you want them to do unto you. I remember I was talking to this one person, and this person no longer believes in God. And he said, you just have to follow, the golden rule. Just do unto others as you want them to do unto you. And I told him, that's what Jesus said. And this person's effectively an atheist. And it's like, we have the Christian impulse, the teachings of Jesus, and we just follow them. And that's what's in the Bible in Romans 2 verse 15. That they make the law is written on our conscience and in our heart. And so when we look about that, people will follow their conscience and their heart because it will testify to what they do is wrong or to what they do is correct. And specifically about creation in the world, there's this false idea that the world's eternal. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, even science says it's not eternal. Even science says the world had a beginning. And so these people, they'll say, no, the world's here forever. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, you yourself, when you were born, you came into being. Your parents, when they were born, they came into being. Their parents, etc., all the way to Adam and Eve. And at some point, whether you believe that's 4.5 billion years ago, whether you believe it's 6,000 years ago, at some point the world came into being. And even if you want to, quote unquote, trust the science and say, oh look, the star, hundreds of millions of years, the star will be no more. The sun, for example. Even if you just want to follow science, that in itself, because there's an end to the world and there's a beginning, means that it's created. And so when we look at the world, which is space, time, and matter, in order for that to be created, something has to be outside of it in order to create it. And so when we look at God and we describe who God is, He is uncreated, which means He has no beginning nor end. He's eternal. So He's outside of time. And so, and when we say God is outside of matter, he has no physical being. Although he did the incarnation, Jesus did become flesh, but that is separate to actually who God is. But he can come into creation if he wants to. And so he's outside of matter. The Bible says, worship God in spirit, which is not matter. And then space, which comes with matter, and that God is not confined to one place at one time. And so humans, where you are right now, that's where you are. You aren't across the world. You aren't. If you're in Mexico, then you're not in America. If you're in America, you're not in Europe, etc. And so I need proof that the world's eternal, because I know it's not. And if you just look at the world and quote unquote trust the science, the world had a beginning. So people are incredibly sinful, and what sin is making mistakes. And I liked how Albert Einstein said it was just like insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. If your life is really horrible, and then you just keep on doing what you're doing, nothing's really going to change. Whereas if you make a change and you don't do certain things, your life will be better. And so Jesus' teachings are perfect. And if we actually follow them, Jesus only established one church. And that church is on Peter. And to say that any other organization is even remotely similar is just not the case. Often Mormons will be like, oh look, we are quote unquote, we have quote unquote the keys. It's like, no you don't. It's like you think Jesus would start multiple churches. It's like Mormonism never existed until the 1800s. That's how you know it's false. And it was started by a guy from New York. Which, if you know anything about New York, I'll leave it to your imagination. But someone from New York started Mormonism. It's a bit of a fucking joke. And it's like, if you do any early church history, look into the early church, any bit of reading, what did the early church believe? It's like the early church was Catholic. They spoke about Mary and they spoke about the Eucharist. And it's like all these Catholic doctrines that we may think that are wrong, it's like the early church spoke about it. They spoke about it quite a bit. And so you go and you're like, maybe what I think is wrong and not what the early Christians believed, because what they believe is closer to what Jesus believed, because they were closer to Jesus when he was here on earth. And so maybe possibly what I thought about Jesus' church and what he taught is wrong. And if you just do a little bit of research, it will be beneficial. Not to say that you need Jesus to be holy, but it certainly makes it a lot easier. And so that's what I would tell you people. And so one critique of religion is that look how many people religion has killed. And it's like, let's actually go through the numbers about how many people were Christians and killed other Christians and other people. If you add that up, it doesn't even fucking come close to the other religions. It doesn't even come close to atheists. We'll take one individual. We'll take Stalin, for example. He was an atheist. 100 million people dead. And it's like Christian leaders, through all their faults, kill less people. It's like the lesser evil. I'm not saying everyone's perfect, but self-professing Christians are far more holier than other religions, specifically atheism. If we look at Mao Zedong, let's be conservative, let's just say 75 million people died. That's a lot of fucking people. And what was his religion? You know? Some say he created his own religion. But anyway. It's like, if you actually looked at the fucking numbers and don't just fucking parrot these things, we think that religion kills people. And I'm not saying religion hasn't. I'm not saying Christianity hasn't. But it's killed far less people than other worldviews. Because if you're a Christian, you're commanded to love your enemies. Which is far different than nothing really matters. And I will say that our actions are very important. And they have drastic consequences. I've never seen anyone do something wrong and then not come back to them. And likewise, I've never seen someone do something good and them not be rewarded. And so I see people wanting to do away with Christianity. And it's like they have no idea what they're actually saying. It's like, if Christianity goes, you got no idea. You think like when you walk outside and your neighbors don't kill you, like, why is that? There's a movie, it's called Mad Max. I don't want to be doomsday on you guys, but I mean, that's very close to a world without Christianity. Very, very, very close. And just kind of like one scene to sort of like just encapsulate is the prodigal son. Which, of course, you can read that, but one movie is John Wick, and then essentially the story is, these Russian gangsters, they kill John Wick's dog, and then they steal his car. And it's funny, it's hilarious. And then John Wick just goes, and he goes into a building, and he just kills like 50, 80 people. And nothing ever happens to him. And it's like this, it's honestly hilarious. The movie is just, it's completely hilarious. And there's one scene where one of the head mob guy, not the head mob guy, but like the father and then the son. And then the son's a little rowdy, a little like rambunctious, and he goes and he kills John Wick. Or not kills John Wick, but he steals John Wick's car, then he kills his dog. And then the father's there, and then the father's like basically punches his son and said, "Why'd you do that? Like, John Wick's gonna come after you. And it's like the movie is just, it's hilarious to watch. It's like it's really entertaining, and I watched like scenes of it. There's a scene specifically in it where the father's hugging the son, and then the father goes, "We sinned. We sinned. It's okay." And basically just being like, our actions have consequences, essentially. And that was quite interesting. Quite entertaining, to say the least. But yeah, hopefully there'll be a fear of God, because Lord knows this world needs it.